Hello and welcome to the Federal. The US held its midterm elections on November 8th, and in many ways, it was a significant election because the overall control of US Congress was at stake. And most importantly, the election results could actually erode the legitimacy of the current Joe Biden administration. To discuss about this, I have senior journalist Dr. Sridhar Krishnaswamy with me. Dr. Krishnaswamy has covered Washington and United Nations for several years. He also writes for the Federal. Thank you for joining me, sir.
My pleasure. Good evening to you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So in your article on this election for the Federal, you said, and I quote, if there is one takeaway of the midterms of 2022, it was one of a huge disappointment for the Grand Old Party and a big relief to Democrats and the White House. So my question here is, what caused the surprise performance of the Democrats in this election?
Okay, good question. And I'll tell you, to be very honest with you, I myself was one of those people who were very skeptical of the prospects of the Democratic Party. I did not think that Biden and the Democrats would do so good as how they did on Tuesday. Now, the reason why I thought they will not do good was because they neither had a coherent message nor a good messenger. These two things are very important in politics. You have to know what you're going to convey, and you have to have the right person to convey it. Now, what changed the things around? See, originally when the campaigning for these 2022 midterms started, right on to the very end, people are talking about Biden's popularity. President Biden's popularity, the economy, state of the economy, inflation, rising gas prices, and crime. And for the Democrats, it was always one of the economy is doing good, and we are trying to do everything we can to rein in inflation, and the gas prices are a bit more manageable than what they were 3 months back, and abortion. Abortion has been a very, very personal issue for millions of Americans, especially women, the right to their own body. And so essentially every polling pundit, every political analyst were looking at things like the economy, crime, and saying that the Republicans are hammering the Democrats away. But I see from yesterday, I've been listening to a lot of commentators, I'm reading a few things. It's actually Biden's and the Democrats' pitch on democracy, American values, seem to have made a huge difference towards the end. The Americans, they were not necessarily rattled out of their wits by Biden or the Democrats, but then a real concern about the direction of the country. They were very, very apprehensive about how divisive the society was getting. They were highly apprehensive about how polarized the political spectrum was becoming. And so they sat back and they thought, hey, listen, if today, if somebody is going to tell me what to do to myself by way of having an abortion or not having an abortion, then tomorrow it can be anything else. They can tell you how to, react in your own homes. So these kind of things slowly have started settling. I think personally, now the last word on the subject has not been said. It will not be said for quite some time. But I think in the Biden's campaigning in the last few days, as what we call as the stretch, I think made the difference here.
Okay, so let's now talk about the Trump aspect of the midterms. So the midterm elections in the United States were widely expected to be a Donald Trump's moment, even though he himself was not on the ballot. So many experts also predicted and quote unquote a red wave across the country, but it did not turn out that way either. So coming to my question now, sir, it is actually a two-part question. Given Trump's ambition for 2024, how much of a setback are the results to him and the party if he decides to recontest? And where did the Republican campaign go wrong?
Okay, again, good questions. I will answer it also in two parts. I'll take the second one first. Where did the Republicans go wrong? The Republicans went wrong because they underestimated the American people. They put too much of a premium on what the extremists and the extreme right wing was going around, trumpeting all over the country. Patent falsehoods about the 2020 presidential election, some bizarre conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theorists from every corner started surfacing. So here you're talking about the American people constantly being exposed to these kinds of nonsense, falsehoods, finally waking up and saying, hey, listen, wait a minute. If every one of your lawsuits have been tossed out of courts, every one, not a single lawsuit, there were 59 or 60 lawsuits that they were filed in the aftermath of the 2020. Every one of them were tossed out. And some of them were even laughingly, tossed out. So here, the political right wing, I'm talking about the extremists, the Trumpists, they tried to ride on that falsehood, which is not sustaining. And that's why there was no red wave at all. In fact, very early on, when the counting procedures started, Senator Lindsey Graham went on air to say, darn it, this is no red wave at all, because he knew exactly how things were falling into place. Now, the first question of yours, what does it make, what's the message to Trump? Now, something, if I were Trump, I will sit back and look at it dispassionately. But then you're asking too much of that person. Seriously, if I were Trump, I will look at these elections and say, maybe I should rethink on this whole thing about my having to contest 2024. Why is that? Many of the candidates that Mr. Trump backed were defeated. Many, of course, one or two won, but the main people, for example, in the Senate race in Pennsylvania, you have a new Democratic Senator, John Fetterman, who beat the Trump candidate, Dr. Mehmet Oz. And see, these are the biggies, these are literally the big ones. You need, states like Pennsylvania, and then there's another one happening now in Georgia, which is going into a runoff because neither candidate got 50% of the vote plus one. So basically, Trump, that magic. So if at all there was something called Trump magic, did not come through. And definitely, I'll tell you, I have not spoken to any Republican leader. I don't want to give the impression that I know something more than what you know already. Many Republican leaders will be heaving a sigh of relief that many of the Trump-backed candidates were defeated, because that should send a signal to the 45th president, Mr. Donald Trump, that he doesn't mean anything anymore.
All right, sir. This is my last question. So what do the results indicate for the next presidential elections?
Good. You see, that depends on who the candidates are. Now, we are assuming that Mr. Joseph Biden the current president will, he said he is going to, be in the race. He's going to seek a second term. Now, who are the? It depends as to who the Republicans are going to, stack up against. It also depends to see. I don't think anybody in the Democratic Party will challenge Mr. Biden, because customarily they don't do that. They don't challenge an incumbent in the same party. But then everything depends on the other side. Who are the candidates? Now, Mr. Trump, getting in does not automatically mean that the others will stay out. You have got some very good candidates, like, for example, the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, who was himself a protege of Trump at one time, but has slowly moved away from him. And he did very well on Tuesday. He not only got himself re-elected as governor of Florida, he had such a huge following of Latino voters that is simply unprecedented for a Republican in a party or a Republican candidate. And then you had, he won 3 new seats that were carved out due to gerrymandering in the state of Florida. So, and then, you're literally talking about somebody like him, and he's relatively young, and and Republicans are really looking to people like him. Now, if somebody wants to ruin a mainstream candidate, like Mr. Trump says, no, I don't care, I'm going to be in the fray, then what happens is that you split the party. And what happens when you split one, you add it to the advantage of the other. So, if I were Biden, I will just be sitting back, putting my feet up and watching the fun.
Thank you, sir. Viewers, Dr. Krishnaswamy's article on the 2022 midterm elections, US midterm elections, is very interesting. The QR code appearing on your screen now will take you to the stories page at thefederal.com. The story link is also in the description box below. Thank you for watching. For more such updates, please visit thefederal.com and the Federal's YouTube page.